For my film review, I chose Full Metal Jacket, directed by Stanley Kubrick, and this film depicts American Marines in their initial training phases and then also when they're posted in Vietnam. I'd like to give you a brief rundown on exactly how America became involved in Vietnam in the first place. And of course we could even trace the roots of this back to 1920s, when there was a growing sentiment of nationalism and communism in the Indochina region. Of course, Vietnam is included in that region along with Cambodia and Laos. And by 1929, the Indochina Communist Party was founded. And prior to entering World War II, Vietnam was a colony of the French. However, throughout the war, the Japanese actually invaded Vietnam. By July of 1945, President Truman of the United States of America was becoming increasingly concerned with the growth of communist sentiment happening in the Soviet Russia, but also in the Indochina region. French President Charles de Gaulle really capitalised on this concern, and he actually expressed that if it weren't for the reinstatement of the French within Vietnam, that France itself might be overrun by communists. They had quite a strong communist political party in France at the time. In 1954, France's ability to hold conflict within Vietnam was really waning. They were low on resources and capital. This again worried the President Eisenhower at the time, who spoke about the domino theory. And his theory was that if one nation were to fall to communist beliefs, communist way of life, that it would affect the next nation and the next nation, and geographically the world would fall nation by nation to communism. There are many themes in the movie Full Metal Jacket. Some of them are the futility of war, institutionalised racism, the programming of soldiers and the psychological effect that their training and military service has on them, and the agenda of the journalists. But the thing I'm going to focus on today is the duality of man. We see this many times in the movie. For example, Private Pyle, he's a simple man and he's humiliated and ostracised by his group during military training. He actually ends up committing murder and then suicide. You see it again with Private Joker. He volunteered for military service, knowing that he would need to kill and to see combat, yet he chooses to wear a peace sign pin. When he was interviewed by the journalism arm of the United States Army Stars and Stripes, he says, "I wanted to see the jewel of Southeast Asia. I wanted to meet interesting and stimulating people from an ancient culture and kill them." We have the young VC sniper, the peasant girl who is fighting the American soldiers who have invaded her country. Originally we see her as a callous sniper who is firing at soldiers without any hesitation. And then finally we see her as a helpless victim, begging for her enemy to kill her. Many studies have been done to determine just how people can commit some of the atrocities we saw in both Full Metal Jacket and unfortunately in wars and battles happening around the world today. My companion reading, New Wars and New Soldiers, focuses on atrocities by situation. That is, atrocities which can be best understood by looking at the context in which they occur, rather than by trying to understand the individuals who commit those atrocities. The authors of this book warn against expecting that morally just people will do what is ethically correct even when under massive external pressure. Speak about an evil zone, where sociological, psychological and emotional stresses intersect. And even rigorous military training cannot fully prepare soldiers for participating in this type of environment day in and day out. They also have the sight of their comrades, friends, brothers being killed, which would be emotionally devastating, and this experience happens again and again, possibly on a daily basis. Relating this back to the movie, we see Private Joker in an emotional state when his friend, Private Cowboy, dies in his arms. Surely this type of experience only serves to further dehumanise and devalue the individuality of the enemy in the eyes of the soldier. And in my opinion, Full Metal Jacket fully represents the way individual, good people can take part in atrocities by situation.